Who's filling it out? Rick, are you filling it out?
That might be a sore subject for those of us that were kicked out, just to have you know.
I know, yeah.
Dude,
Yeah,
that is messed up.
Hey, Leon,
Yeah.
I brought somebody who told me you've been bullying them all through.
Ooh. I've taught you well, Godwin.
Yes.
Taught you well.
Leon, could you see them? Check on the list.
Yeah.
You asking me or Marcelo?
You, Leon.
A lot of new people coming on.
Can you see him now?
I'll just let him slide. I'll just let Leon slide.
No, this is somebody came in that we need to know. We're getting Zoom bombed. We're getting Zoom bombed right now.
Don't treat Godwin like that. Don't treat Godwin
We're
like
getting
that.
Zoom bombed.
I see your nefarious plan, and I raise you an agile coach.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hello.
Yes. I will tell you, Godwin brings the people.
He does. He does.
Godwin brings the people. There's no question.
All right.
Now we have to wonder what people he brings, but he does bring the people. All right, everybody do the poll. Do the poll. Okay. The poll is, when did you move out of the house?
I couldn't vote. It said Leon is
Yeah, that's what it said. It just said stay put.
stay put. Leon doing something to it.
Yeah, what are you doing? I voted.
I was able to vote.
Yeah, it's right here.
I voted.
Did you put your names? Maybe because we skipped the name part.
I'm getting Leon presentation is on the way as soon as the activity.
Leon, you have to press presenting mode or put it on full mode so everyone can vote.
Yeah.
All right, hold on.
I mean, I know you're all about the people and the process, but sometimes you got to get that tool thing going. I'm just saying.
Starting. Be careful.
Yeah. Yeah, this is gonna be cool.
Maybe we should put a which
It
coach
says it.
is
It's
going
weird.
to be
It
come
says
out
it's doing it.
champion today. Maybe we should put a poll like which coach is actually going to get ahead today, right? We're in this competition.
Yep.
I don't know who votes on who. I don't know. Let me think about it.
It says it's doing it.
Yeah. Leon, can you repost the link?
Yeah, hold on.
Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Uh,
And for those that are wondering, I some days I still feel as though I'm trying to move out of the house and onto the beach. I mean, seriously.
I know how you feel.
Seriously.
All right, welcome. I see a lot of things.
now, try that. Did it work now?
Yes.
All right, I'll post the link again. I'm not still sharing now.
All right. So are we trying to click on the link to see if it works? Any luck?
Link works.
I think
It's
we got folks
working
coming
now.
in.
It's working now?
Yeah, folks
Working
coming in.
fine.
Okay. It was the user issue. It's not
No,
me.
it wasn't.
All right, welcome. Again, fill out the survey. You have a chance. Saba, as they're filling out the survey, I'm
Rick, when did you move out of the house, Rick?
Last week.
moved out pretty young.
Last week.
As I went to college, I never came back when it came to the house.
Okay, so definitely 18 and younger.
Yes.
For my daughter.
No, wait. Does going to college count?
You don't
No.
come back, I guess.
I'm with
No,
Art. It does
because
not
you were
count.
doing laundry back. Your mom was doing your laundry. You bring that back.
I went to West Virginia Tech. I went up north. I had no, my mom was not doing my laundry
With no accent?
with no whatsoever.
Man, you must
Wow.
have stood out.
Coach Leon, your question is not clear enough. Out of whose house? You need to specify parents' house.
Come on, Saba. I mean, seriously.
Hey.
You know, come on. Come on. Throw us a bone here. Wow. I mean, I gotta back up Leon on this one.
Well, it's true. I mean, you know,
Hey.
you've
Yeah.
been misconstrued so many different ways.
Laura asked a good question. Thank God for Laura keeping us on track. So it's going to get worse from here. But Laura asked, are there any first-time attendees tonight?
Okay, we
Yeah.
all know we all know who's really good at that, Leon. And that would be Saba.
But not always. I do fumble sometimes. But Godwin was teasing us about Mr. Boozy. Why don't we figure out the story behind that? Who is the
Oh, wow.
mystery guest?
Well, there's not just one person that's new. We have some new people, right?
Okay, well,
Adam.
well, you know what happens,
Adam is
you know, if you, yeah, if you out yourself as having been the first time here, Adam, you just turned on your video, you added yourself in channel, please introduce yourself to the group.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Hi, Adam.
So, yeah, this is my first meetup event ever. So I have the pleasure of meeting you all tonight. From the UK, as you can probably tell from my accent, and living down in Miami, Florida.
Oh, wow.
All right, welcome, Adam.
Nice.
All right.
Nice, welcome.
Thank you.
Excellent. Somebody else added themselves on the channel, Femi. You want to introduce yourself to the team?
Hello, guys. Unfortunately, I can't put on my camera now, but it's my first time in this group, one of several meetups. I'm based in London at the moment. I work as a Scrum Master.
Oh, awesome.
It's a British invasion, I'm thinking.
I'm telling you,
It's a
I
British
love
invasion.
it.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, for as much as you guys are locked down, Femi, I wish I were in London right now.
I wish you were.
I mean, I tell you, I'm you know, Cuban, love my Cuban food, but food options in London, can't mess with them.
As long as it's not British.
Well, that was implied. That was implied, Art. My God, stating the obvious. Okay. And hey, Saba, have we found anybody else?
Yeah, Mr. Law Jones, where are you? Come on down.
Okay, Law, unmute yourself.
Hey guys, how are you doing?
Hi.
Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, I'm new. I actually just started a new role at Gravity IT Resources in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I started about 3 weeks ago, and I actually moved here about 3.5 weeks ago. So yeah, just wanted to learn a little bit more about Agile and kind of expand my knowledge a little bit.
Awesome. Rick, we can bring him in and he won't know what hit him and he won't want to leave afterwards. So press the button.
Now you know the law.
And make sure
absolutely cool.
Yep. Law, where did you move from?
I moved from Columbus, Ohio.
Oh, wow, Laura, you lost somebody.
Good choice.
Right. I'm definitely enjoying it.
Yeah. Lake Erie is not the place to be right now, is it?
No, I'm probably pretty close to being frozen solid there.
There you go. Awesome.
You're not a Ohio State fan, are you?
I am. So.
Oh, and just when I was starting to like you.
U of M fan, so.
Oh.
Good football is good football.
All right, so it looks like 25 or younger, and really it's like 18 to 25. It looks like most people moved out. We got about 25, 26 responses.
Wow.
Perfect.
Now, I think we want to do Art's question, right?
Well, yeah. So
Yes.
what?
Hold
So,
on.
Yes.
Hold on.
Or?
So let's do Art's question.
Guys, are we kicking it off or is this the warm up?
Everything is a warm up.
Okay.
You want to kick it off? Go ahead, kick it off.
So we should tell you folks, right, what we were thinking about for tonight. We know that the anniversary.
We need Rick to do his thing.
No. Who's this Rick guy, and who told him that he can interrupt our conversation?
Man, jeez.
All right.
We need Rick to do his thing.
Rick's gonna do his thing.
Fine.
Rick needs to do his thing.
All right.
Fine.
All right.
Otherwise, he'll go back into the corner and pout for a little while.
Okay, let's hear it for Rick.
All right. This is going to be a long session, guys. I'm telling you, I feel it. They are taking over, so it's going to be tough to. I'm probably thinking that I'm going to be muted in a few minutes too. So my name is Rick Guerra. This is why you give them host capabilities and then they mute you. Thank you, Leon. I know that was you. I can see it. All right. So thank you very much. My name is Rick Guerra. Yes, I am the president of the South Florida Agile Association, but it's not done alone. We do it as a team. We meet on an ongoing basis to give back to the community. Okay, we've been doing it for how long? Does anybody have a count of how long we've been doing this? Who can give me a number? Do we know?
50,000 seconds.
50,000 seconds? Okay.
Give or take.
Huh?
Give or take.
Give or take. Guys, we've been doing this for what, 9-10 months now?
Yep.
Extensively.
Almost a year, yeah.
Every week, Wednesday and Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is for the new people that just came in. I don't know if you got the application. Did you guys get the application? Any of the new people? Adam, did you get that application?
Which one? Meetup. I got that one.
Yeah, you got to fill in an application, Matt.
There's a very
there we go.
we have you fill out, and then there's the actual cost at the bottom. So please understand that this is not a free event. Okay, everyone pays their dues. Marcelo, would you like to share exactly the cost of the session?
Absolutely. It's free as in beer. So where's my beer, Adam?
I've got it. It's chilling. It's chilling for you in the cupboard.
Okay.
Covered. Yeah, he can keep talking.
So absolutely, we do this event for free. Giving back to Nelu, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
All right. So we represent transformation experts. So if you please click on that link, you can actually go ahead and look at our site. There are many activities, events that we run, but we're also looking at people that want to participate on Saturday as well. So we've got a great event that caters to different, skill sets. So if you're a beginner and you want to get the basics, we have a session for you. Intermediate, advanced. We also even have a product team. Again, I always hear it from everyone. I need more experience. I need more experience. But guess what? We're giving you that experience. Okay, so join us on Saturday. And I know we're kickstarting another one that was really, really special for us. It's an all Spanish session. Okay? Keep that in mind, that we're looking to make sure that that also moves forward. Okay, so please join us in our community on Saturday. All right. With no further ado, I'm going to pass it on to you, Leon, first, and then you can pass it to Art, or just throw it to Art. Art, go for it.
Art, what are we talking about tonight, Art?
Well, so once upon a time, about 20 years ago, from February, a bunch of guys got together and signed the Agile Manifesto. So we thought we'd celebrate, and let's go back to Leon's question, which is, when did you move out of the house? And it looks like between 18 and 25. So here, what we call Agile is 20 years old, and we thought we'd talk about where it came from and is it ready to move out? And what does that mean? We have an esteemed panel over here with multitudes of years of experience, decades and decades and decades. With Leon and Marcelo, and we are going to drag Rick into this. But since there's a group over here, we want to hear from you also. So we could talk about the history of this thing and where it came from. But when we talk about the history of Agile, and we say, well, Agile the manifesto was signed 20 years ago. So my first question is, what does Agile mean to you? And when do you think it actually started?
So how about, can I do a poll?
Yes, you can do a poll.
On what is Agile? So grab that. Hold on. I should be, give me a second. Yes.
I think that's the active one. I think that's the active one right now.
Yep. So let me go ahead and, all right.
Just to know, Ray just joined us as well. You need him.
So for those of you who haven't seen this, right, what we do over here is, you can throw a word up there. This thing is going to grab a single word. So if you try and write a phrase, you're going to get all screwed up. We're going to get a lot of the word what or is. And the more often that we get a single word, the larger it'll appear on the screen.
So I'm getting mindset. I'm getting Agile is Agile. I'm getting, yep, gotta go like this. Yep, so I'm getting a lot of mindset.
So put that up a second and let's see the words that were there that weren't mindset.
All right, hold on. Principles, work, life, describe, philosophy, transparency, adaptive, incremental, experimental, iterative, principles, lifestyle.
Right.
The 4 and 12, there is supposed to be 4 values and 12 principles.
Yeah, exactly. 412. Yep.
Yeah.
So
4 values, 4
It
principles.
wasn't
Yep.
420, Leon.
Could have been. Still can be.
But if you go by Agile, literally, it's just flexible, pliable.
Maybe.
Right. So what's interesting is mindset comes out because that's really where they were going. Right.
Mm-hmm.
It is a mindset. So we go out into the world and we get hired as to, the ad says, we need somebody over here to help us be Agile. We want an Agile coach. But Agile is a mindset. So what does that mean? Being an Agile coach. And if Agile is a mindset, how does this apply to anything? And the fact that they wrote a manifesto 20 years ago. So were we doing Agile before they wrote the manifesto?
You want folks to put in the chat?
Yes, we have Andrea that says yes.
How many people's first coding experience was coding in production?
Oof.
Or, yeah, like literally, and you were the developer.
Right. How many people heard of RAD servers?
Well, yep. So, I mean, from punch cards to whatever, I mean, you know, a lot has evolved today. And so I think we could have easily been Agile before it was coined or branded.
Right. We really were. Right. If you look at, you know, who are the guys who came together and started signing this thing? Right. Well, they each came from some methodology. You know, at the time there were practices and methodologies that we were using.
So hold on.
Right.
Hold that thought. Hold that thought. Hold that thought. So I got that. So I got that. So hold on. All right. Here we go. So can you see that? All right. Tell me who's who.
You want me to tell you who's who?
Tell me who's who.
I'm too young. I don't remember these guys.
All right.
I could tell you that when you look at this list, you're going to see RAD, you're going to see XP, you'll see
Scrum,
Crystal, Scrum, right?
Yep.
Iterative.
Pragmatic. Yep.
Right. Working with, you know, working with objects. So we were moving things fast. We weren't even coding anymore.
So on this list for folks in the meetup, what has sort of fallen away, or what don't you hear about anymore, or what have you never heard of on this list? Extreme programming, Scrum, DSDM, adaptive software development, Crystal, feature-driven development, pragmatic programming. Which items have you never heard of? And Marcelo, can you take a look at the chat? What do we got?
Yeah, DSDM. Oh, a bunch of people are calling out DSDM there. A couple people say Scrum and Ken and Jeff.
Wise guys.
Wise guys. Yeah. Well, the question would be is who was the proponent of DSDM? That's a curious question.
Yep.
What do you guys think? And is that even a thing these days?
Yeah, I mean, when I was getting Agile, it was a European thing. I heard a lot about it in Europe. I didn't hear a lot about it in America.
Yeah. The interesting thing about DSDM, believe it or not, and for Andrew's question, is Dynamic Systems Development Method. And interestingly enough, it's actually still used quite a bit in Europe, mostly in places like Denmark, Norway, Sweden. And DSDM was developed from something you probably have heard of here in the United States called RAD, or Rapid Application Development. So that's probably familiar to some of you. The interesting thing about it, and most people don't know this, Leon, DSDM was actually here defined before Scrum.
Yep.
It beat it by 1 year. 1 year.
Yep. Hey, Art, do you mind if I go back and set some stuff up?
Go ahead. Have a good time.
Okay. So actually started, they didn't know what to name it. So we'll tell you a little bit about some of the history of Agile, and then put the questions in the chat. Marcelo will monitor it. But they didn't know what to name it because Agile wasn't Agile yet. And so they called it the Lightweight Methods Conference. They had no idea what to really name it. You can see Alistair set it up, Alistair Coburn. And again, they called it the Snowbird Conference because it's not in the Snowbird Resort here.
Yeah.
And
it's because the warm weather was too far away for some of them to travel, so they just decided
correct.
that they would settle on Snowbird.
So Agile wasn't Agile then. And Alistair still has his Humans and Technologies Conference. He lives in St. Pete, just so you know right now. But there's a picture of them all working. And typically, and here's all their names, and if you want to do mix and match, here are all the names here that were invited. Now, one of the questions I always get was, were women invited? Who knows the answer to that question? Marcelo?
were 4 women invited. Sadly, none of them went. I can only, no, Andrea, they weren't the wives.
I'll say none of them could make it.
None of them could make it to the conference. You know, and personally, I feel that that's a shame.
Me too.
Yep. So I think there are some stories out there that saying, well, it was just that men invited. That's not true. So that's just a rumor. But just people, you know, it's like any conference, right? You can make it, you can't make it.
Yep.
And anything you want to point out here, Art?
Well, we could talk about the fact that this isn't the first time a lot of these guys got together.
Mm-hmm.
This is when they got together and actually did something more, writing it down on paper and coming up with something they all agreed to.
Right.
You know what it's like trying to get an agreement to something. So you want to tell them about how they ended up calling it Agile?
In a minute, although there are a lot of stories about that too. But I think Art shared, you know, they wanted to bring all the thought leadership because they wanted to actually do something. But a lot of them were not exactly positive that something would happen. I think that's the thing about that I took from this, is that people were sort of pessimistic that anything would come out of this.
Mm-hmm.
Here's their agendas. Skiing or afternoon hot tub was my favorite. So I can imagine 17 guys in a hot tub.
Not pretty.
Right? So that was their typical session. And then we talked about the interest. You want to talk about how Agile became Agile? This is my story, but go ahead.
Yep.
How did it get branded?
Yep. Yeah. And for those of you wondering, hey, could they get the band back together? Sadly, the person that we see there, he passed away in 2018. He was the victim of a senseless crime in Chicago, and because of that, sadly, we could never get the 20 of them back together. I mean, the 17 of them back together again if we were here in 2021.
Art?
Yes, I forget what they were going to call it, but they had another name.
Adaptive.
Adaptive, that's it. And they didn't like it. It didn't ring.
Yep.
So, and Mike Beadle was here pictured as an advocate of Scrum and Enterprise Scrum. If you look, he's pointing to the Enterprise Scrum logo. He started that. And really, that's kind of Scrum at scale in a sense, before it was called Scrum at Scale. And he brought a book with him, Agile Competitors in Virtual Organizations. And you can see Agile's pretty big right there. And he said, well, why don't we just brand it this? That's how we think about it. And that kind of caught on with the group. And that's how it was branded this way. It was a very close vote, though.
Yep. Yeah, one of the things that those of us that took some enterprise Scrum classes from him, Leon, used to joke around that he was scaling before scaling was cool.
Exactly. Yeah. And the key thing here is, what do they want to do? They wanted to write a document describing what light methods are, who should use them, and what the benefits cost are, authored by all of us. And Bob Martin wanted to set up a website so people can go to and then create a manifesto that the group signs describing the fundamental tenets.
Mm-hmm.
This is what they want to do. So they had a good outlook, but again, a lot of people were pessimistic because there was so much testosterone in the room that nothing would get done. So what happened? So, you know, and I think for folks here, for Art and Marcelo, who do you think captured this from your perspective, that really started and captured this?
They captured what? Do you mean the picture?
Values.
The
values. Yep.
My understanding is it was that during this event, because he had a psychology and systems development background, Alistair was trying to help them synthesize what was inside of their heads.
Yep.
And my understanding was it was Alistair who was able to turn the different disparate thoughts into something a little more cohesive that they could then come to an agreement on.
Yep. He took notes. You can see him taking notes right there. That's the guy on the left, in the picture on the left, writing down here. He took a lot of notes. But actually, for me, Ward Cunningham really distilled this together. Because they couldn't agree on methods themselves, he brought it a level up. He really helped bring a level up. I think he's a really unsung participant there. And they actually agreed on this. And they were able to do what Bob Martin wanted to do, which is sign a manifesto and everything else. Do we have any other questions, comments in the chat about all this?
No, there was one question about the English fellow who didn't want to call it Agile because apparently Americans can't pronounce that word properly.
Right.
That's correct.
That's true.
Yes. So who was that? Yeah, for me it was Mr. Fowler, because so we have British folks on, so sometimes British folks will call it Agile instead of Agile. So in America, most people call it Agile, depending on where you are, or Agile. I call it Agile. But most work. But Martin would actually talked about that. But they went anyways. One of the things that I want to talk about, I wanted to talk about Art, where were some things forgotten, and to me, like this is back even before 2001. That Crystal and XP, I think, I'll just make an extreme statement. I think they've been forgotten, or people aren't talking about them as much, and I think they were very influential. And of course, Crystal was started by Alistair Coburn, and XP by Kent Beck and a number of folks. Like Ron Jeffries and Chet Hendrickson. And if you take a look here, look at what they're talking about with Crystal: incremental development, informal communication, same room, near room communications, just in time, iteration, retrospectives. XP, incremental development, iterative, short iterations, pair programming, collective code ownership, test first, emergent design, customer on staff, just in time requirements. So a lot of these things also came into Agile, but I think a lot of people have forgotten about where they originally originated. Thoughts, Marcelo and Art, on this?
Yeah, my thoughts here are that if Kent Beck had wanted to retire, he could have turned this into a certification and made bank. But his intention was to the craft. He was an engineer. He was a classically trained computer scientist, and frankly, he just wanted people to come in and do good work. And he had some great ideas for how almost anybody could come in with little experience and learn to become a craftsman or a craftsperson. And so for him, it wasn't about money, and I have to give him props for that, because he's kind of stuck for that for the last 20 years.
Yep. So I would encourage everyone here to do some more research on Crystal and XP and some of the origins behind it. XP was revolutionary for bringing the customer as a part of the team. And imagine asking your customer to be part of this software development team. Pretty radical, right? But they wanted to eliminate all the different hops between the software development team and the customer. That was the idea. And as a coach, I talk about this all the time. Crystal brought a lot of, a lot of the people-based policies with it.
Mm-hmm.
So let me stop here. And so we've given you a lot of information about the event. We've given you a lot of information about all the different things going on there. What questions do you have about what came into it and what happened during that time, and then what's come out of that.
So I do see some similarities between the Crystal, XP, and Scrum. And I think Scrum, like you said, some of those pieces have been either forgotten or kind of like they've been separated, like test-driven development. I think it was called test-first development, which I'm guessing is very much the same or similar. So I think, yeah, I mean, I think some of those things, because I think would make a better product, bringing those back into more of a Scrum methodology.
Yep. Other comments, questions?
I'm curious, like what was, I understand it was very special, but did they do anything else to kind of market this product? So think about it. You guys went over there, okay, we've discovered some things, we wrote something up, but how did it actually get to the next level? Like, does anybody know what was the major impact that actually caused it to say, wow, let's use this. This is revolutionary, even though you're picking a lot of pieces from other areas. I don't know if anybody has that kind of understanding of it.
So one thing you got to remember also, I mean, you know, it's amazing we live and breathe with the internet, but go back 20 years to the year 2000. And what was the state of the internet at that time? There was no Facebook.
.com stuff.
Right? It was
e-commerce.
Yeah, it was the .com world. Right? So you had how are you going to drive people to your website? How are you going to share information with people over the internet? So
You do it with the Commodore 64.
Yeah.
Right. It was conferences.
Yeah.
It was right. It was the basics of Agile. It was talking to people, you know, and going to conferences and talking to other people and other developers and working within your own personal community.
Yep.
It's the only way that you could spread the word at that time.
Yeah.
Well, there were things like CompuServe.
Yeah, there were your users groups and stuff like that, Sheila. But if you were here a couple of weeks ago, we had James Grenning, who was one of the signatories. And one of the things that he has repeated to me in several conversations was that most of the interactions that we had with folks like this to share knowledge, share learnings, were at conferences. It's exactly what Arthur was saying. And he goes like, if we could get folks to share knowledge, share learning in a much more ongoing and direct fashion, then we could actually get somewhere. Andrea, we can't hear you. I'm looking at the chat, so maybe you need to turn off unmute yourself.
Yeah. You know, I can remember back in 2005, there was a conference in Europe on Lean and Agile together. And how could they work together and what was the difference?
Yep. Yeah. And full transparency, quote unquote, back in the day, the Microsoft had what they called Microsoft Developer Days, and they would sponsor conferences locally in different areas. And I remember when I first heard of Scrum as a thing, was when we had a Microsoft Developer Day down here in Miramar at Nova Southeastern, well, not Miramar, Davie at Nova Southeastern University. And somebody came talk about this new framework called Scrum. Actually, back then, he was even calling it a process. And it was going to help us figure out how to develop software faster. Okay. And I was like, okay, that's interesting, but I need to develop software. So I didn't pay it as much attention as I could have. And that was actually in March 2001, believe it or not.
So Marcelo, what job role did you have back in 2001, February 2001?
I was a team lead for a software company that was developing a scheduling system. They developed software to schedule transmission between different satellite stations and TV stations. Basically, like we think of NBC is going to schedule a program. It's got to show up at a certain time on the East Coast and then show up at a similar time on the West Coast. Well, nobody's always sitting there. We want to program our computers to do that for us. So we wrote software for that, and so we were working with, I think, .NET. And so somebody came from Tampa, your neck of the woods, Leon, and hey, man, we're using this thing that this guy Ken Schwaber developed called Scrum, and we're like, okay, and how does that help me get software sooner? There you go.
What about you, Art? What were you doing in February 2001?
Well, let's see, February 2001. So we had just gone through the Y2K crisis back in 2000.
It wasn't a crisis.
Well, it turned out not to be a crisis, but everybody acted like it was. We spent like millions of dollars trying to fix something that never happened.
No, but you realize it's going to occur again in 2039. Does everybody realize that?
Another crisis.
But the other thing is, it would have been a crisis if we hadn't spent millions of dollars and a lot of effort to fix things that would not have worked.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So who can tell me what's going to happen in 2039? Anybody?
I have no idea, Leon, what's going to happen in 2039. So I can answer.
What coming to an end, Leon?
I think you're thinking 2037, Leon.
Well, okay, so 2037 is Unix, but 2039 is what they did in 2000, of course, is hired all these big companies like Capgemini to fix legacy code. And what do you think they did? So the problem was we had a YY, okay, and that was the year, right? But they had to do something different because it was YY. So what were their choices?
They had 2 more digits.
Yep. So you can do YYYY, right? But what's the problem there?
Big conversions.
So what they should have done is CCYY, right? They did not do that. A lot of them created a mapping table where what they said is, if I'm 00 to year, if year, let me do this, let me type this off. If year is 00 to 39, we're going to interpret that as the 2000, right? That's going to be 2000. And if the year was 40 to 99, that would be 1900.
The 19th century. The 20th century. We're going back in time, folks.
So what's going to happen in 2039?
Mapping table is not going to work, and the reason they did that was because they wanted to maintain the 2 decimal places, and so they made this assumption: look, if it's 40 to 99, we're going to assume that it's this century, and then if it's 00 to 39, we're going to assume it's the next century. Except when you get to 39,
exactly,
it's not going to work. So you're going to
Adam's right.
Fix that all over again.
Adam is correct. So if I'm Capgemini right now, what I'm doing is saying, hey, you need to hire us to fix your 2039 problem that we created because we didn't want to fix your legacy code.
That's thinking ahead.
This is how you get paid. This is how you get paid. This is like if you're an auto mechanic and you intentionally mess something up in your car so that you'll come back. That's exactly what it is.
Exactly. We got a problem though, Leon.
So what happened if, just like Marcelo is alluding, if half of them are dead?
It's not a
COBOL
question.
Programmers learn COBOL. So that's my advice to all of you: is learn COBOL.
Learn COBOL.
You'll make big money.
Learn COBOL.
Learn COBOL.
No. Also understand, and Leon didn't mention this, the assumption was that much of that code was going to go away in 40 years.
Exactly. And the mainframe will not go away.
And right,
Yep.
and the
The hardware
mainframe
will
would get
still be here.
replaced
The
with something
software
else,
will not.
No,
And
it's
so-
actually the most efficient machine out there, to be honest.
Yeah.
which is why they
And-
use
and
this.
so-
But Art, I have a question, Art.
Yes.
What was your job title in 2001?
What was I doing in 2001?
Yeah,
I'm
asking Leon in a second. So
Yeah, I was building the solution development process at IBM.
what the hell's a solution
And
development?
it looked a lot like SAFe before SAFe was invented, except it was better.
So why didn't it take off?
Yeah, because IBM appropriates everything, Godwin. That should have been the immediate answer.
We didn't patent it.
Yeah,
And,
I'll give you an interesting. When I heard about the daily Scrum and daily stand-ups, I was like, "Ooh, hold on. We were doing that at IBM in 1987. We called it cafecito at 9:30 in the morning, where everybody would gather around a board with sticky, I kid you not, sticky notes that had the IDs to our work management system. And we would say, okay, who's working on this? What got done yesterday? And I kid you not, is there anything keeping us from finishing something?
Yeah.
Sound familiar? And this was late 1987. I kid you not. And so we're like, wait a minute. You mean we could have come up with this and made bank? But there you go.
Yeah.
And we were also swarming because when we would get behind in our waterfall projects, we used to get a group of the developers to stop what the hell they were doing and just focus on fixing one thing so that we could go back to progressing. But I digress. So
Yeah.
Art, when did you learn about Agile and the manifesto?
So this is where I get back to the definition, right? So before they called it Agile, we had RAD, which stands for Rapid Application Development Servers. And so if you weren't going up on a mainframe, you could actually get a server. They'd spin it up. You can go build your code and put this thing up in the infrastructure, and people would start working on it. Back in 2000, 2001, so I built a web application with a developer from, well, first one was the web application with a guy from Canada, and we just got on the phone every day. And then actually before that, we decided we needed an application to manage the end-to-end process. I wanted to bring together the application inventory with the application development process and deployment processes. So me and a couple of the guys got together with a developer and a DB backend guy and a team down in Atlanta. We went to Atlanta and we took a week and built it. But formal Agile was back in 2005, 2006, when I got asked to evaluate it for the company. And
you know what was really funny?
What?
When you say that was when we were doing the requirements and the modeling up front with our RAD software, there was a lot of focus on what does the user want? Does that remind anybody of a principle?
Look at the user in the middle. Look, Ray, look where the user is.
Exactly.
What a shock, man.
So it was like.
And prototype.
Yep.
What about you, Leon? What the hell were you doing in 2000?
Yeah, right. So I was a systems analysis developer and tester, all three, and project manager, and for Blue Cross. And we had just gone through, again, as the Y2K scare. And we moved on to actually, we got IBM AS400, and we talked about implementing a new app on it and then migrating all of our membership to the AS400. So I was working on doing that.
So if neither of you
moving 4 million members from the mainframe to AS400.
So if neither of you three gentlemen were using Scrum, XP,
well,
learned about the manifesto,
we weren't
March
calling it that. We weren't calling it that, Ray.
Pardon?
We were doing what we thought was the right way or the normal way to do some of this stuff.
I wasn't doing waterfall.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I had teams doing waterfall too, but we also we bought Rational back in the early 2000s. Per Kroll came along with it, we started doing object stuff and RUP, rational unified process, which was an iterative process.
I think Per just left IBM, by the way.
Oh boy. Well, it's time.
That's what I heard.
So when did you guys start to say, hey, we got these values and these principles? I was going to ask Regina, except Regina was eating like I was before, so I didn't want to interrupt her dinner. So when did you guys start saying, hey, these values, these principles, it kind of makes sense. We should include these damn things.
Probably the weekend after I came back from that conference, and we had to go into meetings where manager tried assigning things, and they started, asking for customizations where we get these big design documents from the customer, like, I don't know, NBC Sports Network, which is now going to go away. And we couldn't talk to the customers for months, and we had to try to figure out, well, what did they mean again? Is it like this or is it like that? And could we do it a better way? And so myself and a couple of other people, we started pushing back, which got us into trouble. But hey, everybody who knows me knows that that's just how I roll. And at some point it started to stick.
I did my own thing until 2007, and then I couldn't take it anymore. And I actually was going to leave the industry. I was going to leave the industry and open up a bagel shop or something, because I was just tired of it. And I stumbled on Agile and Scrum, and I was so desperate that I tried it. Because why would you try something called Scrum? It just sounds terrible. So I was desperate enough to try it, and it actually worked. And there was so for me, it was a big revelation. And once you get successful at something, once something becomes successful, it just catches on. And in my first team, we got complaints all the time for us being loud. We got the facilities people would come in and say, you got to tone it down. I tell people, I give headsets out to everyone else and say, put your headsets on. They wouldn't like that at all. And that, and then after a while, people were like, what are you guys doing over there? And they were very curious. So let's complain any more curiosity. And then finally they were like, you got any openings on your team? Because it seems like you're having fun over there. And that's when I knew I hit on something that I wanted to do for the rest of my career.
What about you, Art? Regina, I'm going to ask you next.
Oh, you know my story. I struggled like, resistance like crazy in a big corporate world with all sorts of different places and people. I had one division really jumped all over it. They changed their whole process and dedicated architects to the teams instead of creating, making everybody go through an architect review process and stuff. So some of them were good. Some pilots that I ran were great. Turning stuff around in 24 hours before there was a cloud. But they pushed me into things like, well, what are the metrics? And metrics was a bitch because they wanted to measure developers, and IBM never had the integration of the developer and the business, which is what you really need. So they wanted to measure the developers. How agile are they? And we struggled with that one and came up with things like very strange, really barely related to Agile, like, did you reuse code? That was considered an Agile practice because you didn't have to create new code, you reused. That's agility, right? On the other hand, we also gave credit to people who did refactoring.
Yes.
So we were actually rewarding XP practices rather than Agile practices.
And I had to figure out those metrics to send them up. Gina, what about you?
I want to actually talk about and get people's opinions on. So what do you think the original signers of the manifesto think about Agile now at 20 years?
Yeah.
Well, I've talked to Alistair, and he seems hot and cold. There's certain things that he likes, I think there are certain things that he doesn't like as much. And I guess that's just the normal evolution of something that you can reflect on.
Marcelo?
Sorry, I put myself on mute. I think that you know, from my conversations with folks like James and Ron Jeffries, you know, they think that it's like we've kind of dragged our feet, if you will. That, you know, even though, you know, we train and certify people, we haven't focused on the real issue, which is individuals and interactions, people having productive conversations like my dog is trying to have with the squirrel in my backyard. And, you know, focusing on getting people closer connected. I know it's difficult given COVID, but basically, you know, addressing the human element of product development.
Okay.
Honestly.
Art.
Oh God, you really want to hear my opinions on these things?
Yes.
So all right, so I'll be radical. All right, so we go out there and we consult, and we're safe consultants, right? And we sell frameworks. And when I talk about Agile, I want people to understand what is the difference between Agile, a framework, methodology, and practices. And they're different. And when you start to think about Agile, you got to move away from the fact that there are frameworks. So we're selling governance and IT management systems.
Yep.
Right. And are we really out there pushing Agile?
Yep. And I want to add on to that. So to me, the people there at Snowbird and 20 years ago, they were all involved in software development, if not developers. And they wanted to bring back the development craft and highlight that and make that number one. You know, people call it the Agile Manifesto. It was called the Agile Manifesto for Software Development. That's what it was called, because they wanted to highlight the developer role as being an important role and not just an order taker. But what I've seen happen over the past 20 years is it becoming more of a project management thing, more of a governance, less about development and development practices and better development practices like what XP was coming up with. And so I think we've lost that. And I want to get it back. I want teams to value the craft of software development and developers. And their developers are not third-class citizens.
Yep.
And we need to champion them and invest in them.
Yep. And that's the subject, that's the part of the subject of the book that Bob Martin published last year. Imagine publishing a book the year of COVID, right as it's kicking off, to talk about how do we clean up Agile. And that's what he actually titled his book, Clean Agile.
Yep.
And his rationale from having looked at it and actually pinging him about it is he wanted to dispel some of the, you know, some of the myth and some of the mystery around, okay, so why did we do this? And Leon just hit on it. He wanted the business to understand what kind of things should we expect from our developers, and what should we enable those people. And by enable, I mean give them the support and the systems to do that, to be better. Okay, and that would be what he called clean agile.
Right. Yep. So then if we take it from there, so what do we do with what we got, right? We're in this business, and some come into it from the software development and from the Scrum approach or Kanban approach for operational stuff or whichever. And by the way, you'll notice that nobody talked about Kanban back then at the conference. Right? I guess it was too new. Right. But so now what are we going to do with this thing? And the question is, so where does it go from here?
All right, well, hold on.
And Andrea's got a question.
I got to actually, I got a couple questions. Let me do a couple questions, and then I have a poll everywhere, Art, for your question. So, all right. So we have a question. Agile is being marketed as applicable to any industry, not just software development. What do you think about this? So in other words, so that was the manifesto, Agile manifesto for software development. Over the past 20 years, people have said, well, it's not just for software development, it's for outside of software development. And then what's this business agility thing? So that's where things are going. They're going away from software development, saying Agile is good for anything. And more than that, the business can be Agile. Thoughts, comments, questions about that?
Well, think of it this way. Remember the principles, those things, the 12 part of the 412. The second set of 4 principles in the Agile Manifesto, the second 4. The first 4 were about the customer. The second 4 were about how the business could do things in their own interest to help the customer better get what they wanted by enabling the last set of 4, the developers, to do their job the way that they understood it needed to be done. So in other words, they tried to bridge the customer and the developers with the second 4 set of principles in the Agile Manifesto. And sadly, I personally think that those are probably the 4 least paid attention to principles in the Agile Manifesto. And it's only been over the past few years that people have started to say, wait a minute, the developers are working better. The customers are better able to describe what they want. Why are we still not getting the results we want? Oh, it's because we're in the way. Well, how do we get out of the way?
Which raises a question in my mind, because as I listened to the 3 of you, and had Regina had a chance to speak, she probably would have said something similar. How come what people are experiencing today is the same thing that you guys experienced in 2007, 2005, 2001? How come we haven't evolved or advanced? How come we're having
because Agile's much better without people.
From people,
hey,
for
guys,
people.
That was a mic drop moment. Let's let what Leon just said sink in. Okay, have you ever seen that cartoon where they've got the 2 cartoon characters and they say, hey, Pogo, you know, I have seen the enemy and the enemy is us.
Yeah, I've seen
you guys ever seen that cartoon?
Yeah, I've seen that one.
Okay, maybe I'm too old.
No, I've seen that one.
But Leon hit the nail. Leon hit the nail on the head. We are our own worst enemy in that regard. The habits that we form are self-propagating, and to change habits, and now we've stepped into Rick's domain, it's very hard. The simplest of habits to reprogram as a human has been shown clinically to take 8 weeks to rewire the simplest of habits. Imagine something that you've habitualized that supports your retirement plan. Stop and think about how hard it might be to help someone rewire that so that they're not inflicting harm on someone else.
You know, I would just say it's difficult for us. This was a radical philosophy or mindset to propose. And I don't think people realize how radical it is for organizations. And it's caught on so much, but it's very much a radical philosophy, and it disrupts organizations tremendously in the culture. And I think that's a learning that I don't think people still grasp.
Yeah, and if I can add, guys, from the Agile coaching perspective, I tell you, I mean, we can train teams, get teams together, you know, convince leadership to help us, you know, bring teams that are organized and deliver. But the most difficult thing is the mindset. Like, that's always a roadblocker at all of the different levels. You know, process, framework, easy. People can change what they're doing, but do they want to? Are they going to continue doing it? Are they going to go back to their bad habits? Like, the teams that we have to spend the longest time are the ones that either they're having mindset issues within the teams or mindset issues with the product owners, with the leadership that support them. That's the biggest struggle that we have in Agile coaching. So I agree, that's still a lot of the issues that we have today.
But is that because it's not a simple follow these 4 or 5 steps? It's more, these are the values and the principles. You need to figure out how to do those well. And I don't mean like do them in the sense of the word do, but to change your thinking and execute along a different line of values and principles, which it's not written down. You have to figure it out.
You're onto something there, Leon. I mean, Ray. I mean, Regina was correct. So I'm going to shut up because she wanted to say something.
No, I was going to add, it's about having a different conversation, right? And thinking differently. And when you've been doing the same things over and over again for so long, it's hard. It's really hard. It's really hard. If they don't decide to change themselves, they're not going to be able to do that for anybody else.
So,
correct.
So what I normally like to do is I always like to ask the question, do you need more information or motivation? Right? Because I've had people, for some reason, they just don't know how to work with others. They're not comfortable. So you got to kind of walk them through and kind of show them. And then you got to say, you know, okay, you've got the information, but why aren't you making a decision? How many doctors do you see still smoking? Hello? Don't you think they know that thing is bad for them and they're still doing it? Right? So that's where motivation, what is their motivation to change? What is their motivation to learn something different? Right? You guys have seen that video of them trying to ride a bike, right? And it's the opposite, and it takes a long time to make that change. Go ahead, Marcel.
That's key because I know Rick has talked a lot about the 5 dysfunctions of a team and stuff. If you ever read that from Patrick Lencioni, pick up another one of his books. It's called The Motive. Rick hit the nail on the head there. What is your motive for behaving the way you're behaving? Okay, there's something back there. You know, there's something that's going with you wherever you go that motivates the way you behave. Yes, it's associated with your mindset, like Regina said, but there's a motive sticking around with you. I hate to say it this way, but it's kind of like a tombstone, and you're carrying it around with you. So what is that motive that you have that causes your behaviors to be the way that they are?
Well, you were either motivated or punished for being something different.
Absolutely correct, because your motives are influenced by other people's motives. It's not just you; it's a system. You know, it's kind of like the book Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency. It's all connected. The murder mystery for why are we not more agile now than 20 years ago is the fact that it's all connected, and there's these motives behind all this stuff that are connected to everybody else's motives. And unless we understand each other's motives and figure out a way through those motives together, it will keep us from being agile.
So who else wants to participate in this discussion here?
Yeah, one of the problems I've seen with the mindset of Agile is with the mindset, I have to admit that I don't know it all, or I might be wrong. And that is very hard for people to admit. I don't know it. We're not getting paid to I don't know. But to me, that's fundamental. I don't know, so I have to learn. And I might be wrong. So I'm going to learn from being wrong. People still think being wrong is bad. Being wrong is good if you learn from that wrongness. So I'm going to shut up.
The thing that always annoys me is that people do Agile one way. And instead of understanding that it's a set of tools that you use as they apply, they say, oh, this is how Agile works. And they try to make that one way the only way. And if you tell them something different, they think you don't know what you're talking about.
I couldn't agree with you more, Sheila. it's the reciprocation of Agile. And what my answer usually to them is, hey, there's no magic beans. My name is Jack, and we're not growing a beanstalk here, people.
So I was curious. So since we've heard a little bit about the past, and we've talked a little bit about the present, so February 11th through 13th, 2011, how do you think it will be different 10 years from now?
No, that's 2011 is 10 years ago.
Oh, I'm sorry. Right. 2031. What is it? 5 or 6 years before the Unix system blows up?
No, I'm gonna say where will Agile be in the next 20 years?
Yeah. I was doing 10 since 20 years could be like a really far.
So what do you guys think?
Go ahead to the link out in the chat.
You've heard what it wasn't. You heard what it was 20 years ago. You kind of know what it is today. What do you think it will be like 20 years is what Coach Leon, that was his time box there.
Yes. Where will Agile be in the next 20 years? Grab the link. All right, I got changed, personal, agility, practice, focused, obsolete.
Here's an interesting one.
That's an interesting thought, Leon. Because one thing that we haven't had too much here in our meetup, and spoiler alert, might come up in 2021, is this subject of DevOps.
Yep.
Because, you know, one of the things that kind of puts pressure is this ability to get something into the customer's hands. And if something is keeping something from getting in the customer's hands, and therefore being able to derive value, nothing motivates people more than the fulfillment of some need. And so who knows? It could be Agile as we know it is obsolete.
Well,
totally possible.
So to me, there's two worlds when we talk about Agile in the future, right? One of them is the technology side. And we know what DevOps is, and it's just a question of deploying it and getting off mainframes, et cetera, except, you know, you have to have systems that can handle, let's say, 1 trillion transactions overnight. Those things exist. I know about them. Data. You know, we've been talking about data lakes for 10 years. I'd love to see a good one actually work. And then be able to be translated into a business application that can handle that kind of work and perform. So there's technology challenges that are going to take us into the future. And then the other question that we had, which is, what does Agile mean when it's not IT? Right? And what is that going to mean for the business? And what's that business going to look like? And there are some interesting experiments out there. And you know, considering places like Zappos, I don't really know right now what those businesses are going to look like in the future. Right? You know, development without you know, software or solutions without development. You know, that's the thing right now. But again, you have different.
Well, I mean, yeah.
segments.
So folks are talking a lot about no code or low code development. It's getting back to object-oriented programming in my mind. But that's very popular right now, where Salesforce, Pega, other types of software is no code or low code, and anybody can code. And I think that's a whole nother stream of work where anybody can code and there's no UI. So I think that's where we're getting to. We're all focused on UI, but what's our UI? Where is the UI with Alexa or Siri? Where's the UI there?
Right. So this is, you know, but it's this is the difference between a small company, personal thing, you know, applications and things that we use personally. What is a business going to look like in the future? Is it going to have to be an enterprise, you know, like a big bank with, you know, 14,000 branch offices that have to, you know, they take these nice things that are out there like Salesforce, and then they build custom solutions to pull the data out of the damn thing, and then custom interfaces for the people to use. So what's that future going to look like?
All you young whippersnappers keep talking about all this, this AI user interface. I'll tell you what's not going to change, or what better not change. Low code, no code. Okay, sound development practices. Notice I didn't use the word best, because we don't code the way we used to code back in the 1980s. Okay, what didn't change is using our brains. Sound practices. Try at your desk to make it work before it gets into Leon's hand, because if it crashes in Leon's hands, he will tell you and he will not be happy. Better you not happy than him not happy, because he's paying you for it. So sound development practices, whatever domain that is, that better not change in Agile. So whatever else you do, that better stick around.
All right, so let's do some exit thoughts and questions.
Let's hear from the crowd.
Crowd, what was the one thing you heard today that's going to stick with you? Something maybe Rick said. What did you hear today, which you're going to think a little bit more about tomorrow?
What do you want to contribute to the discussion?
I'd like to add something else about the future. Just with this whole virtual reality, where we're going into the future. I mean, you guys talked about AI, but I mean, like right now we're 100% remote. Remote is nothing new, but I don't think we're going back. And I know in Agile, we were so, oh my goodness, teams, collaboration spaces, face to face. I got to be next to, the whole team. They're touching each other right there, with everybody. I think the collaboration has exploded. Now, the organizations that were in the office, we've proven that we can collaborate 10 times even more virtually. I don't think we're going back. And then you've got the kids that are playing video games every single day now. They're going to grow up, and their collaboration way of communicating, we cannot even imagine what that's going to be like. It's going to blow up. It's going to be beyond anything that us at this age can understand.
Yeah.
And that's going to be even 10 times more agile. It's going to be called something else than we are today.
I don't know if that's going to be true, because the first time things get a little difficult, somebody will get the idea, if we get these people back in the office, we can have a 20% increase in productivity.
Yeah.
Art, did I quote it right?
There's a couple of problems in that. I'm sorry to cut you off, Art. There's a couple of problems there. Number one, burnout. Humans were meant to interact, but not so much. In other words, what am I saying? A little Leon, it's good. Too much Leon, not so good. Okay? I'm just saying. So this virtual interaction has its limits, and the physical interaction has its limits. As we've probably seen in our companies, people suffer from Zoom burnout, and that's going to continue to be a thing. And even when we go back, the fact that we haven't physically presence with each other, we are going to have to recreate from the ground up the social bonds that we had pre-COVID. So there's a problem maintaining, and there's a problem recreating involved because of this last year and something that we've had to experience.
Right. No, so I agree. That's more short term, like for us now. I'm saying 10, 20 years from now. The kids that are growing up today, the way that they're collaborating, playing video games with people all over the world, and for them that comes natural, and they are connecting. It's a different way of connecting. But I think when they go out into the professional world and they start doing companies and they start being the leaders of tomorrow, I think it's going to be a different world.
Can I comment on that?
Absolutely, Alfredo, please.
Yeah, so that's one of my concerns, because as a parent, if you see human beings haven't caught up with evolution yet. Like you guys are commenting that. How many thousands of years have we been telling stories over campfires in faces? And back in the day, even language, you had to identify if that person was going to be a friend or foe, Sith or Jedi, whatever. And now we have this idea that kids don't even really communicate effectively. I mean, even communication, the tone, the text, you know, I don't know if you have kids, but they'll tell you like 1 or 2 words, and even the way they may be texting something, but you're not clear on what they're saying. So I think we have a convergence and a divergence. This convergence of all this great technology, it's wonderful, because right now we can have this meeting that we couldn't have had 10, 20 years ago, and this interaction. But at the same time, our kids are not getting the kind of interactions that I was getting. I used to play outside all the time with kids, constantly, playing in the street. Nowadays, how many kids are playing in the street? Everybody's in front of a computer or a phone every day. I don't know, most kids are, at least I see that a lot. So I wonder about that aspect of it. You guys have mentioned the burnout. We'll have to compensate for that, because I think our brains just haven't caught up with that ability to interact. And the human interaction is so sophisticated. But anyways, that's my 2 minutes.
All right. We're looking
at try and get a remote hug. Let me know how that works for you. See which one you like better.
All right. How do we got a couple more minutes. Do we want to, any other closing remarks before I end it, guys?
I wanted to ask, you know, a question was asked about the future, and it wasn't really, nobody really kind of dealt with it. So I don't know if we can still a little bit dive just for 2 minutes. Like I hear bleakness and I see obsolete and I see all that. So it's kind of scary. So what do we as a community have to do to keep the fire burning? That's my question.
I think it pretty much we have to do like all agile methodologies, evolve from what they are in one point and then see what fits or what works in the next. If we follow Leon's view of the future, then we have to see what would be efficient or what would be useful then. Because Agile is taking over, but it hasn't taken project management down. There's still many companies that use it. So maybe it might not be obsolete. It might be used less because something new may come along. I guess it depends on people like us, if we want to keep on using it, or if we adapt to those new methodologies or new ways of doing things because it makes sense.
Yeah.
Given the time and the situation.
I think.
So you got to go back to the original statement. What is Agile? Agile is a mindset, right? And so what I said wasn't that it wouldn't be here. It's going to change because the Agile, as long as we keep to the principles of Agile, and you go take a look and it talks about, you know, individuals and interactions and retrospectives and working with people. And as long as we stick to the principles and keep understanding that Agile means change and adaptation, go back to the other first term that would have been used, adaptive, then Agile will still be here. We may not recognize exactly what it is that they're teaching.
Correct, Art, because if you look at the 12 principles, none of them are about processes or tools. All 12 principles are about the people. They're all 12 about the people. Different sets of people, but they're all about the people. Agile doesn't fix things. People fix things.
All right. With that said, thank you, Marcelo. Great job, coaches. We do want to take a quick picture, so please turn on your video camera. Turn on your video camera.